Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another comic book spoiler review. And today I'll be covering fairly quickly the future X-Men Bishop, Lucas Bishop. Of course, we'll cover Cables, like two primarily time-traveling mutants. So yeah. It's like I never really grew up reading Bishop solo stuff. Like anytime I see Bishop is always in like a X-Men ensemble. So this technically is like the first time actually going through a solo adventure with him. Before we get into it, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. If you haven't already, follow me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/talkativecarl, where I stream live. My Patreon, patreon.com/talkativecarl. If you want to further support the channel and put in certain requests for certain reviews or topics, as well as follow me on my Twitter @talkativecarl. In case you are not privy to this, I'm close to getting my 400 subscriber goal. Once reached, I will be doing a Hot Ones challenge video in celebration of the milestone. And I'm currently gathering questions. So if you haven't put in a particular question via like YouTube or my Twitter, you can. So that way I have a good set of 10. So that way I'll have something to answer while I'm going through each of the hot sauces. Anyway, so before we get into the story of Bishop, I want to cover his abilities. Bishop has the ability to absorb vast amounts of energy, including magic, sound, light, psionic, psychic, etc., either environmental or directed towards him, and he can project that energy from his body in different ways, whether it's in the form of concussion blasts, energy rays, explosions, fire, plasma, etc. In addition, Bishop can release the energy in the same way he received it, but with more force. The nature of his powers makes it difficult to damage him with energy blasts, while also enabling him to work well with any energy using teammates. Bishop can also store the absorbed energy within his personal reserves, whereupon the energy increased his strength, speed, stamina, recuperative abilities, as well as offering him a measure of invulnerability. The upper limits of his ability to enhance his own physical abilities with absorbed energy is not exactly known, but is well into the level of being superhuman. He is learning to use his energy to temporarily increase his physical attributes in a manner similar to Sebastian Shaw or Agent Zero. The common powers he absorbs are listed to help accelerate his healing, super strength, speed, stamina, enhanced reflexes and senses, endurance, near invulnerability, psionic resistance, be able to resist certain amounts of psychic probing, energy conversion, concussive blast, energy resistance, poison resistance, and he also is a skilled combatant, being trained as like an officer from the homicide branch, and many years in the armed and unarmed combat training from war situations. Expert marksman, weapons proficiency, fluent in Mandarin, French, and Arabic. Weaknesses. Originally, unlike Sebastian Shaw and Agent Zero, Bishop was unable to absorb energy from inertial impacts such as hitting walls. This does not mean he's incapable of absorbing kinetic energy. Kinetic effects such as exploding car from Gambit were able to be absorbed. It would seem that as of late, he is learning to absorb inertial impact energy, which makes him almost invulnerable. It is unknown whether it is possible to increase this capacity in time. or in time with practice. Some types of energy are more difficult to absorb than others. Bishop can overload himself by trying to absorb too much energy, although the upper limits are unknown even to himself. When it is overloaded, it releases excess energy in an explosion around it until his body reaches an amount of energy that he can control. Although he can absorb psionic energy from explosions or telekinetic attacks, Bishop is not completely immune to telepathic attacks, but his power sustains him and helps him reduce their speed and power significantly. He is practically vulnerable to non-energy weapon attacks, so if he were to be shot by a projectile weapon or hit with a crowbar, it will harm him. And because his ability is passive, he cannot actively absorb or control the rate of the amount of energy he takes in. He must get it from an outside source, though he's seemingly not as good as absorbing ambient energy at the same rate as he would direct energy, like Scott's optic blast or Aurora's lightning, needing to rely on at-hand amount of power to fuel his abilities. So yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of his abilities. So at this point in time, and this story is written by John Ostrander, art by Carlos Pacheco. Hope I got that right. At this point in time, Bishop is in, present day timeline with the X-Men, and so he's part of the team until such time he is able to go back to his own time. So that's where, like, the state where Bishop is at that moment. So he is currently in the danger room, pretty much tapping into the danger room's defenses and offenses to simulate a battle he was in the past, in the future, with some friends that went down during that fight. And he's running it over and over again, trying to figure out where he went wrong and how can he overcome that certain scenario. And through various, X factors, he's trying to Groundhog Day himself, so he can figure out a way to, like, okay, what was the best outcome? And every time his friends still die, and he's trying to, like, there's a whole arc he's going through, trying to, overcome some trauma he went through in a particular battle, because he wants to be able to always make sure he save his men. But the X-Men looking on, seeing that, oh dude, like, he's going through these simulations, like, like over a dozen times, and he's not letting up, and they're trying to tell him, like, okay, Bishop, you need to take a break. You're not in a war anymore. And you need to learn to chill for a moment. And of course, like Bishop doesn't want to chill. He wants to continue on with the simulation. So with some encouraging from Storm, he's like, okay, can you just let's go to a show. Let's just go off to a show. Just give Danger Room a break for a while. So he goes out with Aurora to, like, just, okay, because he treated it like it's an order from Professor X. That's the only way. Like, he's a soldier. It's like it's the only way for him to get him to, like, actually do something. Nothing is ever a suggestion for him. And he treats, like, not Xavier as like a teacher. He's like a commanding officer, but it's the only way to get Bishop to try to chill. He's grizzled, he's not as grizzled as Cable is, but he's just like that. super battle hardened type of guy, and he grew up in a time where he'd never known like a lengthy respite. So he's in like a peaceful, I won't say peaceful, depending on how like the X-Men story is going on at a particular time. But right now, it's not constant battle. There are, periods of peace, and you can just chill. Here we're following this guy Bottom. We've seen like a little bit of him in season 4 of 90s X-Men animated series, which I just finished posting, which should be on my YouTube channel fairly soon. I didn't really speak much about him. Didn't even bring up about the episode about Bishop and Days of Future Past, Wolverine and Storm. I kind of blundered that. Going back in time, because it's like Worth of a Man. It's pretty much like It's a Wonderful Life kind of situation with Xavier, but it's like the importance of what Charles Xavier brings to the world, and taking him out causes like an Age of Apocalypse or Days of Future? I think it's Age of Apocalypse, where it's like Xavier never existed prematurely, and causes like a Days of Future Past situation where the X-Men who's supposed to be involved with certain things wasn't there, so it makes situations a whole lot worse. And the cause of that, at least in the episode, would be Batim and his he's a minion, but his boss, I forgot his doggone name, but he got time traveling powers that only works when he absorbs the life force of a particular person. And Batim is like a mutant power to kind of chrono anchor, pretty much helps him with his power. But his boss is killed by this guy named Mountjoy, who has the ability to absorb people into his essence and taking on their memories, or if they have any kind of like ability, he takes that too. There's no telling what was the upper limits of how many people he can absorb at one time. Throughout the story, he absorbed at least 3 X-Men. So he is from Bishop's timeline as well, but now he's in present day, and he wants to go unimpeded. He's offing anybody who knows he exists, in this current time, that he's from the future. He wants to be like a walking ghost, that he can do whatever he wants without threat of anybody knowing about him or spreading words about him. So he already took out the boss, so he's going after Batim. And Batim is it's like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. He's trying to escape this guy from coming after him, but every time he always manages to catch up. So thanks to some group of thugs trying to jump Mountjoy to steal his wallet or something like that, gives Batim the time he needs to get away, while Mountjoy not only kills most of the gang members, but takes over the leader and just assume his body. And what you can tell is him, because like he doesn't completely change into them. He just it's like having like it's like the facial structure of the particular person. Like you see him later on absorb Storm, and Storm's facial structure morphs into his facial structure, but everything else kind of like remains the same. It's kind of like that. So Batim knows that Bishop is in the present day, so he eventually calls on Bishop or at least calls in the X mansion, and of course Jubilee picks up and doesn't give like the full details on where Bishop is. She only just says, "Oh, he's out in the city catching a show." So Bahim waits out in like the theater district and got lucky and see Bishop walking out of one of the buildings with Aurora, and he runs to him and warns that Mount Joy is coming from. He shows up, and since now Bishop knows that he's here, that means that he has to take out Bishop now. And of course, him and Bishop had a run in the future countless of times. And matter of fact, thanks to Bishop's sister, Mount Joy got locked up in the future. And so he has a vendetta against this family. So Bishop sneaks up on Storm, assumes her body, and uses her abilities against Bishop. But since Bishop has like energy absorption powers, any electrical attacks or wind attacks he absorbs and use that force of energy to redirect it. So it was like a back and forth. He eventually got this guy to release Storm by just like throwing him against the walls, forcing Storm out. And then he ended up scurrying away after he takes some damage, because this guy has a crossbow. So he doesn't use like a standard gun, he uses like a crossbow. And since it's not an energy-based weapon, it severely injures Bishop. So Storm ends up taking him back to the X Mansion so he can recuperate. And thanks to Forge, because by Bishop request, utilizes some holographic technology that Bishop has to make a pseudo AI of Bishop's sister in a semi holographic form, so he can have somebody kind of like communicate with instead of utilizing any kind of thought bubbles. And it works upon Bishop's kind of brain patterns. So wherever he remembers how like his sister is, the AI kind of behaves in that similar manner. Is pretty much like, along this kind of arc, Bishop going through some kind of like therapy session along his merry chase of chasing down Mount Joy. Stupid name, by the way. Meanwhile, Mount Joy is recuperating by taking over the body of some woman, and since the fight, he's trying to make sure he goes to the nearest police station to erase any records, which Bishop theorizes that was going to be the case. So he goes back in the city, goes to the nearest precinct, and utilizing this hologram to pretend like he's bringing like a rogue mutant to be brought in, and got into some files and asked for some particular files. That's where Mountjoy is assuming the body of a police officer, and once Bishop finds out and chases him, a battle ensues, and where leads to another chase on the street, where it causes like a crash, and the crash, reawakens some kind of past trauma with Bishop, where he now thinks he's back into his present time in the future, and he's talking with his sister who's supposed to be dead, and now he doesn't know what the heck is going on. But he goes out of it back into the present day. Clearly he's like suffering a concussion, but in combination with some kind of PTSD, more than likely, because the loss of teammates and his sisters probably weighs on him. Plus, with the war he probably had to, definitely had to fight through since his childhood. It's probably creeping up on him all at once. But Mountjoy is attacking the nearest police officers who's trying to help Bishop up, and he's thinking it's his sister and another teammate of his, but all that comes to an end when one of Mountjoy's crossbows pierces the policewoman's neck, shaking him out of that kind of fantasy. And now him and Mountjoy is back into the fight again in this alleyway. He shoots his gun. I love, like, Bishop has all these cool big guns, just like Cable, and he shoots at like the nearest wall where it's like some open power lines, where he absorbs the electricity, absorbs it, and sends like a blast out at Mountjoy, trying to nail the sucker. And he's trying to come after him like what he's called in the future, like a XC, which is, I guess, like a high-ranking kind of bounty hunter or officer of his time. And of course, Xavier's trying to explain to him that you're not that anymore. You're an X-Men, and we handle things differently. We don't eliminate our enemies. We bring them to justice, and that's what we're supposed to do. And of course, Bishop, in this point, is questioning whether or not he really belongs with the X-Men, because he grew up and trained in a particular way, and it's not that part of him is not easy to turn off, clearly. So thanks to a blow to the head again by Mountjoy, he reminisces his time as a child, learning from this guy named Hancock in his blind, I'm about to say blind ninja, but it's like this blind warrior who probably more than likely taught Bishop how to fight the way he does, him and his sister, and how to survive. But once again, Mountjoy wakes him out of that when the fight's still continuing on his end. And once again, like I said, like I'm kind of going all over the place, mixing it up. But yeah, he's like seeing people of his time in the faces of other people of present day. And it's like this, obviously he's gone through a concussion that he's having like recuperated from. But he's like not all there yet. And although he's reminiscing about his, because the party doesn't, well, I guess it depends on your point of view how much of it's helping, how he has this holographic AI of his sister conversing with him, and she's trying to remind him of his XC's training and eliminating his enemy. And Bishop is telling him, because he remembers one of the last conversations he probably had with his sister, where they had an argument, because she rose through the ranks of being commander of their entire force, while he's just commander of his entire street unit. He's like, it's kind of like a cop situation in certain movies where it's like, I belong on the streets, in the thick of it. I don't want to be behind a desk. I don't want to be a desk captain. And like I belong on the streets kind of situation. And that's what Bishop is. That's always like he liked to be. But she wants something else. But she wants him where she is. But that's not what he wants. And that's where their argument is. And this hologram is still carrying on that ethos of eliminate your enemies. And he has to remind her later on in the adventure that that's something that you never understood. Like, I'm not going to sacrifice my comrades just for the sake of nailing the perp. So in the fight, while he was distracted, Mountjoy managed to consume Bishop, and decides, since like he told the X-Men about him, now he's gonna use Bishop's body to eliminate the X-Men and absorb Professor X, and to be the most powerful mutant in existence. And so he marches his way utilizing Bishop's memories to know who to eliminate first, leaving Professor X last. So he ended up absorbing Psylocke, and then eventually Gambit, and then eventually Angel or Archangel, and he has three, like a chimera. He has three powers that Bishop has to fight against. And Mount Joy figures like, okay, because Professor Xavier and Beast are out from this kind of conference and they're on their way back. He figured, okay, I can utilize Psylocke's powers to mask myself until the time is right, where to lure Professor Xavier into a false sense of security so I can then absorb him. So Bishop is on one man against four people, essentially. Him, Mount Joy, and the powers of Psylocke, Angel, and Gambit. So thanks to Forge fine-tuning his sister Shard's AI programming, he managed to spread the hologram throughout the entire X Mansion. So he uses her as like a distraction, because he has like his real vendettas against his sister, because she's the one that brought him in the first place, but he doesn't know she's dead. So he tricks Mount Joy into chasing this hologram into the danger room, where it's set up like it's the future, like the future program. And now he's trapped inside where he cannot get out, so he can finally have this one-on-one battle between him and Mount Joy. And Mount Joy finds out too late where he's in, and so these two battle, and thanks to the hologram, because it's semi-solid, Mount Joy goes after, thinking like, oh, I can absorb him, and because he can also, if he absorbs you, he can also choose to completely eliminate you from with himself, just purely like wipe you from existence from inside him. But since he doesn't know she's like a hologram, like a solid hologram, he is stunned, and she's clamping onto him long enough for Bishop to finally blast him to separate all the X-Men from his essence. And this hologram is telling him, because she's not going to survive this battle once he unload his energy onto these two. She's like slowly starting to phase out, and she's telling him like, finish him. And of course, Xavier's already back, and him and Beast is looking on from the control room, and Beast is wondering like, you gonna stop this? It's like no, I want Bishop to. I could stop it, but I want Bishop to come to this conclusion on his own, because Bishop is like, he's not an Xyz no more. He's done with that part of his life. He's an X-Man now, and he's not gonna eliminate his enemies. That's not what he's about. So he knocks out Mount Joy so he can be brought to justice, and he just like makes an announcement: I'm not an Xyz no more. I'm an X-Man. And he, releases all that pent-up energy, and then knocks out Mount Joy, and like which leaves like Xavier proud and like reaffirming why he created X-Men, because they share in that same belief he does of a better world, and we have to lead by example. So it's pretty dope. It's a pretty dope Bishop story. Highly recommend it. I do like the art style. Like I said, like the 90s art style for the most part have been very nostalgic for me. So it's just like the color, splashes, like I really love. But yeah, it's a pretty dope Bishop story. Of course, there's others, but like I wanted to see like, okay, what's the first miniseries is all about. But that was like a quick story of Bishop, the man out of time. The next one, yes, it will be Cable. And I gotta figure out which Cable story I want to tell, because there's one where like he's caring for the baby Hope Summers. There's supposed to be like the Hope for the Future Mutants kind of thing. It's between that or another 90s miniseries of Cable. I can't decide which. I'm going to take a quick look at the first couple of issues on both and which one I feel more inclined to talk about. Anyway, I will see you all in a little bit, maybe like an hour or two later, because I want to get something to eat and post some new videos up on the channel before I start playing a little bit more of Destiny 2. And then later on this week, I will be starting my walkthrough of Street Fighter 6, and I have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse spoiler review this Saturday I want to get out for you guys too. So anyway, let me know what you think of Bishop as the member of the X-Men. Like, is he your favorite? What do you think of him? Yeah, all that good stuff, because he's fun. He's like a dope character. He got one of the dopest powers ever. Like cool Cable. He's pretty much like, Cable's cool too, but it's like, Cable's slightly younger, but not as grizzled, but still dope. But I'm pretty sure there's like there's definitely Bishop and Cable story that's like part of like 2 men at a time team ups, like kind of like buddy cop thing, like Lethal Weapon in a way. Instead of like Cable's Murtaugh while Bishop's Riggs. That's how I equate to it. It's like they're like Murtaugh and Riggs. Anyway, I will see y'all a little bit later on tonight. So anyway, don't forget to leave a like and comment, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.